Welcome everyone. There has been a lot of controversy over the story of the 7 days of creation. Many people, including scientists, geologists that is, reject the first 7 days of creation because it cannot be scientifically true. For instance, on the first day there is light, but it is not until the fourth day that the sun, moon, and stars appear. We will also explain the reasons why many people never even reach days 4, 5, 6, or the seventh day. The day of rest. Yet we hope to show how it is a story of our spiritual regeneration, how we go from ground zero to a life that God promises us so we can live life more abundantly. At the end of this video, one could apply this story to just about anything in life, even making YouTube videos or other endeavors. Many start at ground zero, then after many trials and tribulations, arrive at a desired place in their YouTube journeys. The Lord does say we are co-creators with Him. We will be going through many scriptures and examples, especially in the latter half of this video, of how people today, whether a firefighter, a YouTuber, a sailor, or any person in life, can hopefully understand and show how this story reveals how we can better reach our lives of the life more abundant that the Lord promises us. We have a video about why millions think that Joseph was Jesus, and in that video we read through many scriptures that also reveal what the Bible says itself, and also our video on the number 7, and how it is a divine number in the Word. In Hebrew, the meaning of 7 means completeness. So sit back and relax, and let's dive into this beautiful story of our spiritual lives, with what it takes for us to attain day 7. This story reminds me of a beautiful Christian song by Bob Dylan, titled, "Pressing On, to a Higher Calling of My Lord." We hope in this you will see a story of our becoming deeply and fully human, so that we can experience the highest, most joyful, most wise, and most loving humanity for which God created us, in community with others who have also traveled the regenerative path toward heaven. Many of you may relate by having lost loved ones in your lives. Before we begin digging into the days, note that throughout the Word, it speaks of all of these things: agricultural things, beasts, clean and unclean beasts, birds, fish, seas, rivers, good and evil, and so on. But the most ancient time is called the beginning. By the prophets it is in various places called the days of old and also the days of eternity. The beginning also involves the first period when man is being regenerated, for he is then born anew and receives life. The first 3 days of the creation story talk especially about the growth of our mind, about our thinking, our understanding, and our faith. We start first by understanding. That's why the first thing God says is, "Let there be light." Genesis 1:3. I can relate to this story in the following ways because either I've experienced it or I know people that have. Perhaps a person that was not brought up with any heavenly truth, perhaps a teenager or adult kicked out of the house, maybe had to go to a hotel, an unwanted divorce, sitting in a jail or prison, or some other tragic incident in life happens, that a person is so very distraught, and there happens to be a Bible nearby. There are often Bibles in some motels or hotels for this reason, at least there used to be, or someone to teach them something of the Word. And someone really down and out may, for the first time in life, decide to open the Bible and read from it, and begin to stand on some truth they feel they may find in it. I know a few people that have. And God said, "Let there be light," and there was light. The first state is when the man begins to know that the good and the true are something higher. Men who are altogether external do not even know what good and truth are, for they consider, oftentimes prefer to believe, that all things to be good that belong to the love of self and the love of the world, and all things to be true that favor these loves, not being aware that such goods are evils, and such truths are not really true. But when man is conceived anew, he then begins for the first time to know that his goods are not goods, and also, as he comes more into the light, that the Lord is, and that he is good and truth itself. That men ought to know that the Lord is, he himself teaches in John, "Except ye believe that I am, ye shall die in your sins." John 8:24. Also that the Lord is good itself, or life, and truth itself, or light, and consequently, that there is neither good nor truth except from the Lord, is thus declared, "In the beginning was the Word, and the Word was with God, and God was the Word. All things were made by him, and without him was not anything made that was made. In him was life, And the life was the light of men, and the light shineth in darkness. He was the true light, which lighteth every man that cometh into the world. John 1:1-3-4-9. Whatsoever is of the Lord is compared to day, because it is of the light, and whatsoever is man's own is compared to night, because it is of darkness. These comparisons frequently occur in the Word. Regeneration itself is therefore called a new creation of man. The expressions to create, to form, to make in almost all parts of the prophetic writings signify to regenerate. Yet within a signification, as in Isaiah, everyone that is called by my name, I have created him for my glory. I have formed him, yea, I have made him. Isaiah 43:7. And therefore the Lord is called the Redeemer, the former from the womb, the maker, and also the creator, as in the same prophet, I am Jehovah your Holy One, the creator of Israel, your king. Isaiah 43:15. In David, the people that is created shall praise Jah. Psalm 102:18. Again, thou sendest forth thy spirit, they are created, and thou renewest the faces of the ground. Psalm 104:30. That heaven signifies the internal man, and earth, the external man before regeneration, can easily be seen. Ground zero, spiritual void and darkness. However, before we have the light of spiritual understanding, before the first day, there is spiritual void and darkness. This first state starts from our earliest childhood and continues until we consciously decide to turn our life around and move toward God in spirit. Our initial state of zero spiritual life can last well into adulthood. There are people who reach 30, 40, 50, 60 years old before deciding to turn their lives around. Our period of spiritual void and darkness can last a long time. You will notice that after the first 3 days, we have developed the ability to think spiritually through the first 3 days or stages of our regeneration process. The remaining days of creation talk especially about the growth of our heart, about our ability to love our fellow human beings and love God. These are the days when the warmth of the sun starts to reign, and when the warm-blooded animals appear. This is the ground zero from which our process of regeneration arises. Day 1. Glimmers of spiritual understanding. On the first day when God says, "Let there be light," it does not mean a sun to light up our solar system. Let there be light is our first realization that there is something higher than this material, earthly realm. It is the first realization that there is more to life than eating, sleeping, working, playing, and having sex. The very first glimmer of our spiritual growth is when the light dawns in our mind that there is a higher purpose to life, that there is something more than this material existence on earth. Often we realize that life is so short, like the blink of an eye, compared to eternity. Sometimes we feel there must be more to life. This is our first stage of our spiritual growth or regeneration. Day 2, spiritual understanding versus material understanding. On the second day, things start to become clearer for us. The Bible tells us that God created an expanse, or a dome of the sky, to divide the waters from the waters. There would be the waters above the dome, which in our day we think of as the clouds, and the waters below the dome, which are the rivers, lakes, and oceans on the earth. On this day, we begin to realize that there is a spiritual truth, symbolized by the waters above the dome, that is distinctly higher than all of our earthly knowledge, symbolized by the waters below the dome. The second day is when we realize that there are higher truths that we need to learn and follow in our life. This is when we begin to perceive the higher spiritual realities that exist above and beyond the rudimentary material level knowledge that we need to navigate our physical and social life on earth. This is when our mind begins to open up spiritually. This is our second stage of regeneration. Day 3, developing our thinking spiritual mind. On the third day, God separates the waters, the ones below the dome of the sky, from the land so that the dry land appears. This is when plants can begin to grow. Plants represent the growing spiritual concepts in our mind. First to grow is the tender grass, sometimes translated simply plants or vegetation. At first, we have only a tentative and sketchy idea of what this spiritual life is all about. But as our thinking spiritual mind develops, soon there are seed-bearing shrubs. We know in the Word we are to become bearers of fruit. And finally, there are trees, which represent well-developed, solid principles of spiritual life. At this stage, we develop the principles of spiritual living that will guide us through the confusing forests of life. On the third day, our spiritual trees also begin to produce fruit. These fruits represent the good deeds we do for others. The third stage of our spiritual growth is one in which we start devoting our life to doing good for others. But it is a struggle. We often have to force ourselves to live by the spiritual principles we have learned, even though we really don't want to. That's because we're still fairly well wrapped up in ourselves and our own experience. We also still think that we are doing all of this from our own strength and intelligence, that we're the ones who understand, we're the ones who love, we're the ones who are producing these fruits from our own self. And so our fruits of service to others are not yet truly alive. The reason they are not fully alive is that while we think they come from our own goodness and our own understanding, the reality is that everything good and true comes from God. This is our third stage of regeneration. Day 4. Putting God, faith, and spiritual insights first. Now the sun, moon, stars surrounding the earth. God said, "Let there be light" on the first day, but it is not until the fourth day that God creates the sun, moon, and stars. The fourth stage of regeneration is when we first start to truly be motivated by love and faith. The Lord continually taught love to him and charity to the neighbor. Prior to this stage, we did talk about spiritual things and we did do good deeds, but the external self we presented to the world may not have matched our real inner motives. The inner motivation for our good actions may not have been love and compassion for our neighbor. For example, we may have been motivated by a desire for attention and accolades, or simply by a desire not to have our life be so terrible. In this fourth stage, however, we start to put our own desires and our own pleasures to the side and focus more and more on God, symbolized by the sun, as the real center of our life. We feel God's love as we feel the warmth of the sun. And in our times of spiritual struggle and darkness, when we don't feel God's presence, we can fall back on our developing faith, symbolized by the moon, to carry us through until the daytime dawns for us again. We also gain a clear view of the fixed and eternal spiritual principles that can guide us through our difficult times. Much the way sailors used to guide their ships at night by looking up to the stars, this is our fourth stage of regeneration. Day 5. Coming alive spiritually. On the fifth day, God creates the birds, which represent more living and active ways of thinking spiritually, and the fish, which similarly represent more living and active ways of thinking about our place on this earth and in human society. This is when we start serving others, not just because we tell ourselves that we ought to, but because we are starting to feel that giving others help, comfort, and happiness is truly the best way to live. We start to genuinely care about the well-being of others. We want to do good to our neighbor out of a sense that serving others is the most important thing in life. In this fifth stage of spiritual growth, our life on this earth starts to come alive spiritually. Everything we had learned before about how to run our business, care for our home, and raise our children begins to take on a new and more spiritual dimension in our mind. This is our fifth stage of regeneration. Day 6. Now we are developing the warmth of true humanity. And on the sixth day, God creates warm-blooded land animals, which he speaks of throughout the word, most with the true and good sense, and others in the opposite, or profane sense. And finally, human beings. As you might guess, the day on which human beings are created pictures the stage of our life when we first begin to become truly, fully human. At this stage, the good and honorable outer self that we present to the world starts to be a match for our true inner motivations. The beauty others see in us truly reflects the living, warm-blooded beauty of the human love for others and for God that is growing stronger and stronger in our heart. We do the things we do because we sincerely care about other people and because we love God. When we begin to feel our greatest joy in serving others, this is when we become truly human. This is our sixth stage of regeneration. Now to our final day. Day 7, achieving inner peace in an active spiritual life. Can we get to day 7? On the seventh day, God rested. He has helped us get through all of the trials and triumphs so far in our lives. The seventh day of creation is the state in which angels live. It is a state that we too can live in during our final years on earth if we have struggled through all 6 of the previous days of creation. We also get a foretaste of this heavenly state from time to time throughout our lives when we experience intervals of peace and contentment. When it says rest in the Bible, it doesn't mean sitting around doing nothing. It means a state in which we have no conflicts within ourselves about the things we are doing. We are basically on autopilot. Similar to when we struggle to learn something new, go through all of the trials, and then we know how to do it. Kind of like riding a bike or driving a car. It means doing everything we do effortlessly and effectively because we love to do it and we know how to do it. In effect, it is living permanently in what many psychologists identify as a state of flow. When we have achieved this stage of spiritual life, we can be very busy outwardly, working hard with our mind and body and accomplishing all sorts of things, and yet feel the restfulness of peace inside of ourselves because we have achieved the life we love. Angels live useful, busy, happy lives of active service because they truly love one another. They no longer have to endure internal struggles. They can simply do what they love to do, with nothing standing in the way within or around them. This is our seventh stage of regeneration. This is when we finally achieve a fully living and spiritual humanity. Now to the meaning of life on earth and in heaven. But there is much more to come. This seventh day of inner rest from our spiritual labors is the promise God gives to each one of us, if we are willing to go through the struggles of the other days or stages of regeneration. And it is a struggle. Change is rarely easy. As we regenerate, we are spiritually reborn again and again in each new stage through experiences that can be difficult and painful. Most likely, we will not travel a linear path to the seventh stage. Rather, our path of spiritual growth will be a cyclical one. We will travel forward, drop back, and press forward as we grow, so there is no need to beat ourselves up when we fail to act perfectly in each situation. While there are general guidelines for regeneration, each person's spiritual path will be unique, and each person's challenges and struggles will also be unique. Yet that is why we should each achieve the state of charity to the neighbor, so everyone can help everyone else achieve this state. This is God's promise to us. If we work our way through all 6 stages of regeneration and into the 7th, we will become people who love one another, who enjoy living a kind and thoughtful life. While there are general guidelines for regeneration, each person's spiritual path will be unique. Then upon our death and rebirth into the spiritual world, we will find our way to the heavenly community that best matches the character we have developed here on earth. There we will live a life of joyful, active, loving community and companionship beyond anything we can possibly experience here on earth. We will become fully human and fully ourselves. This is the meaning and purpose of our life on earth. We spend a brief time here in this mixed-up material world of struggle and labor to learn from our life experiences, to change and grow step by step into people who genuinely love God and our fellow human beings. To become deeply and fully human so that we can experience the highest, most joyful, most wise, and most loving humanity for which God created us, in community with others who have also traveled the regenerative path toward heaven. Thanks for watching. If you enjoyed this video, please click the like button. YouTube says it helps the algorithm. And even share. If you would like to be notified of upcoming videos, click the subscribe button so you will be notified. In the meanwhile, feel free to watch our many other videos on other biblical subjects. We have a video about how we lost the tree of life you may want to watch. And it goes through our other trials and tribulations also. Thanks again. Until next time.